You may be dealing with issues like mast cell activation, candida, SIBO, or a host of other gut issues, and you might be wondering what you can actually eat, or you might be dealing with a lot of food intolerances and maybe don't understand why. What I'm going to share with you today is the food guide that I used as I was trying to heal from all of this and break it down for you. So we're going to jump into it. I have linked in the description a link to the website where you can download this for free, but let's get going. So what you're going to see is that this is the Paleo Autoimmune food guide. It also is related to low histamine. I know a lot of folks that are dealing with gut issues are dealing with histamine issues as well. There's 2 pages in it. The first page that I'll go through are the items that you can eat. Second page are the items that you should probably avoid. First off, what you're going to see, it's probably a little overwhelming. There's lots of colors, lots of things going on. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit more simply. So at first, what you're going to see are the categories, and you can see some of them along the top, like vegetables, roots, meats, and so on. I'm going to walk through each of these individually and explain them in more detail. The second thing you're going to see in the bottom right-hand corner is the legend. So any words that are in red, you're going to notice that they have high sugar, or high glycemic load, and you're probably going to want to avoid those if you're dealing with things like candida. In orange, you're going to have the items that are higher in histamine, and you're likely going to want to limit, and those are for a few reasons, and I'll walk through that in a little bit. Fodmaps are in blue, and so if you're dealing with things like SIBO or bloating, you're probably going to want to avoid or have them in moderation. And lastly is oxalates. Those are in purple, and you're likely going to want to limit those as well. I will note that everyone is individual, so the way your body reacts to each of these different pieces will be different. There is no one size fits all, and it's even in terms of your nutrients profile, in terms of how you're handling your food, how you're having supplements. Different items will interact differently, and you're going to want to be able to look at that and listen to your body and how it's responding. I would also highly recommend that you keep a food journal to understand what foods you're eating and how your body is feeling based on those, because you may be able to introduce or change what you're eating based on that. Okay, let's take a look at vegetables first. I'll walk you through how you read this. So things like artichoke and asparagus, they're both colored in blue. And so if you look at the legend, it shows you that there are Fodmaps in it. So if you're dealing with SIBO and bloating, you're probably going to want to at least limit them, if not eliminate. Going down a little bit further, here's an example with celery where it has 2 colors. So it have both Fodmaps and oxalates. So it's looking at the food and then the colors that are associated with it. Throughout the rest of the vegetables, you'll notice that there's a mix of different colors that are in there. And there are also some that have no colors. They're just in black. So these are items that do not have one of the 4 items that are listed. And they're probably a little bit safer for most people. Again, that isn't necessarily everyone. You may still find that you have issues with it. As I was going through and using this guide for myself, I found that what I was eating a lot more of personally was cucumbers and lettuce. Were the top 2. I did add in some bok choy as I went along and some radicchio or radish. Doesn't mean you can't add some of the other things in. I found that oxalates off the beginning bothered me a little bit, but I was able to reintroduce them more quickly than some of the other things. Again, this is all individual. Looking at the roots, again, it's the same thing. You'll notice that there's a few of the roots that do have more sugars or higher glycemic load. And so if you're dealing with candida as well, you may want to reduce or eliminate. The first items for me that I was able to include were things like sweet potato in smaller amounts. And so you'll want to, again, try some of these, understand how they interact and work for you, and see what makes sense. In terms of the nuts, for me, what I was able to include were macadamia nuts. They were more as a treat than kind of part of my regular meals. They are higher in calories, and so it's not necessarily something you're going to want to eat a ton of. Things like pumpkin seeds are also really good if you're dealing with parasites. They can help you with that. Meats are another big category here. That's between the vegetables and the meats are where the bulk of your calories and the bulk of your meals will probably be. The meats, though, especially related to histamine, you are going to have to be careful. A number of meats inherently have higher histamine. So if you do have histamine reactions, what you're likely going to see are things like flushing, and you're going to have fatigue, you're going to have brain fog, and this will happen shortly after eating. That's one indication it's potentially histamine related when you eat. So things that are processed meats, so those are your bacons, those are your hams that you get from the grocery store, those kinds of items will inherently have more histamine. The longer a meat has been sitting after it's been cooked, or if it's been out, more histamine will naturally develop. For myself, I was okay with to eat meat after it had been cooked or had been around for about 24 hours. After that, I started to see that I had symptoms. Some people are going to be a lot more sensitive. This is related to your gut health, whether you've got anything related to DAO enzymes. So if you're not producing them as much, that's what breaks down the histamines in your body. And it could be a genetic component as well. Either way, if you're dealing with a lot of these issues, you are going to want to limit the amount of histamine because it will be inflammatory for you. Things like the seafoods, those are items you're going to have to be extremely careful with because they do get histamines a lot faster. If you get them from grocery stores or otherwise, most fish will have higher histamines. You want to be very, very careful. For me, the only thing I was able to eat from a fish perspective is something that had been flash frozen right after it had been caught. Those are a little bit more difficult to get, but you can look online and there are some companies that do offer that and they can ship that to you frozen. And so I did use that off the very beginning. The omega-3s or the omega-6s, those are the items that can be very helpful for you as well. A lot of folks are deficient in, so that's something to think about. The offal category down at the bottom, those are just really the organs from animals. Those can be okay. Again, it follows the same path as all of the other meats. You've got to make sure that they're not sitting out and they're not in your fridge for too long, 24 hours. If they're in the freezer, that's a little bit different and they can last a little bit longer. As we get into the fruit category, you will notice it is a lot more colorful in terms of the items from the legend. For myself, when I was going through this and I was trying to heal, I actually avoided most fruit. It really was just kind of like a dessert for me. If I did have it, I would have it every once in a while, and I would look at the items on there that maybe wouldn't impact me as much. I had a little bit more coconut, and I'd make things like fat bombs in order to have something savory for me later on. But again, this is going to be up to you. I would just say be cautious, especially things like watermelon, where you're going to have a little bit of everything in there, and folks may react to quite a bit more. Moving over to the fats, there's a differentiation between what you can cook with and what you shouldn't heat with. So first I'll start with what you can cook with for fats. So these are your coconut oils, duck fat, ghee, goose, lard, or tallow. And coconuts, I would have a little bit of an asterisk on there. High heat, I wouldn't cook with coconut oil. If it's low heat, you're probably okay with. The reason for that is they oxidize and they actually become inflammatory at really high levels. And so it's really the animal fats that are a little bit better to cook high heat with. And then on the do not heat, you've got a few that are in there again. Just make sure these would be the things that I'd be drizzling on my salads in order to have salads and have a little bit of extra flavor. Moving over to the herbs, you've got a number of different herbs. This is where you're really going to get the taste profile for a lot of things that you're cooking. As you look all the way over to the left, there isn't a lot that's actually in the black in terms of writing, so with none of the issues that you're going to run into. So you are going to want to add herbs, you are going to want to add spices. So use the things that you enjoy and that work for you. That's how you're really going to spice it up. Pantry items, you can cook with a few other things in terms of powders and flours, but I would highly recommend, at least initially, as you start to go down this path, you're probably not going to do it. You're going to spend a lot of time cooking otherwise, fresh meals, and this probably isn't where you're going to want to spend your time. Plus, you're going to have to add other ingredients in, and so, I mean, you can, but I would probably stay away from it. In terms of your spices, again, this is another way you can add a little bit more flavor to what you're cooking. Personally, for me, I used a lot of sea salt. Sea salt is really good for you. There's a lot of nutrients in there. And it adds flavor profile. I would even add this on top of my salads, and I know that sounds strange, but with the salad, olive oil, and my meat, it gave me the electrolytes that I needed, and most people are missing when they go on a fairly restrictive diet. In terms of sugars, you can take a look and use some of them. You can add them to whether it's a drink or otherwise. I tended to stay away from all of these sweeteners or sugars. It was just a personal preference, but you can use them. In terms of teas, you've got a number of different options, but the reality is for most folks, it will be water. Filtered water is better than tap water, and then you can include different teas. If you can get loose leaf tea, that is better than a tea bag. So that's it for the items that you can eat. Again, this is pretty restrictive. The diet isn't meant to be followed for a very long time. It's really meant to get you to a point where you can start to heal, and then you can start to add things back in. And so you can start to test and try. But this is a great way to reduce the inflammation and get to a point where your body can heal, and you can start to figure out which items may be bothering you. All right, next we're going to move to the items that maybe you should avoid, and I'll walk through why and kind of the cause behind them. So on the very left-hand side, you are going to notice grains are on there. So for the vast majority of items, grain is out. You want to stay away from it for a lot of different reasons. Most of them you'll see have either something related to Fodmaps, or it could be oxalates or glycemic index. Really, if you're dealing with candida, all of them are off the table. Things like corn have a little bit of everything. Some of them, it's the way that they're harvested and the way that they're farmed. Long story short, stay away from them. This will be tough because that's where a lot of folks get the carbs in their diet. And so you're going to have to, it's really going to be a mental play on that one to make sure that you're able to get food and feel like you're full. Beans and legumes are very similar in terms of you're going to want to avoid most of them. They are tougher on the gut to digest, and a lot of them will cause issues either with histamine or even just digestion in general. So again, I would completely stay away from them. The seed side of things, there's a few of them that are okay. I did use a lot of black cumin seed oil, not the seeds themselves. It's something that's, again, individual to you as a person, but I would probably try and avoid. Nuts as well, stay away from them. On top of the items that are here, you're also going to notice that there are things like peanuts and coffee that have a higher likelihood of having mold in there. Folks that are having gut issues or mast cell activation, a lot of them are also sensitive to mold, and so you're going to want to make sure you're staying away from those too. Nightshades are a group of vegetables and food that some people have issues with. Again, this is another just category that pull them out, see how you feel without them as you start to add back in. If you love peppers, bell peppers can be fairly well tolerated for some folks. I was able to add those back in and tomatoes as I went along, but not initially. Anything that is a prebiotic, you're also going to want to stay away from as your gut is trying to heal. It's just too much all at the same time. So try and stay away from that, especially probiotics that are in a pill or powder. Stay away from those as well. A lot of people are sensitive to dairy. It may not be lactose intolerance. It may be other things in it. Another one is casein, but regardless of what it is, it's a great thing to remove that. You don't want to have any if you're dealing with candida. But again, this is something that lots of folks are sensitive to, and you probably want to stay away from, at least initially. And then there's certain things that you could add back in. Mozzarella, fresh mozzarella is a great one to trial later on. And most folks, it's a lot better tolerated. There are certain spices that you're going to want to stay away from, at least towards the beginning. And this is for a variety of reasons, but a lot of them are histamine related. That's the list. Again, if there's something on there that you absolutely love and works for you, maybe, but at least initially I would try and stay away from. A lot of people are sensitive to eggs. Doesn't matter if it's the white or the yolk. So I would probably just caution everyone on eggs. You may or may not know if you are sensitive to them. Take them out for the first little bit and see how you're feeling. Again, that may be one of the first challenge foods that you add back in after you've gone through this for a while. Number of other items that are in your pantry will be related to histamine. So anything that is canned, anything that's fermented, just stay away from that. At least initially. Some of these things you may want to look into later on, but initially stay away from. All alcohol's off the table, especially when dealing with candida. On top of that, it overwhelms your detox pathways. And so if you are trying to heal, if you are trying to get other things out of your body, whether it is parasites, whether it is heavy metals, they all enjoy this stuff. So just make sure you're taking that out of your diet and replacing it with something else, whether it's teas or otherwise, just different drinks if that's what you're really looking for. If you are eating packaged foods and not individual ingredients, you are going to want to look for some of these food enhancers. They will wreck your gut and wreak havoc on it, and so you're going to want to stay away from them. Best, or even better is if you don't even have packaged foods, they're all those single, simple ingredients that you're adding yourself, so you know what's in there. Talked a little bit about fermented food, but again, keep away from all of these. You've probably heard that these are great things, and they are when your gut is functioning normally, but when you're having issues, these can cause problems as well, so stay away from anything that is fermented. In terms of drinks, number of different things here that you've probably seen. So even the teas, black and green tea, stay away from. Anything caffeinated, and cocoa for the most part, you're going to want to stay away from. All of these things, again, are just different options. Find substitutes for them, which ends up being water or otherwise. And then especially if you're dealing with candida, anything sweeteners or sugars, stay away from. Try and find something different or go without. What you will notice, and what I noticed, is that after about a week, it started to get better. You didn't really crave anything that had sugar. It's that first week that you're going to have to get through, and it is tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It is tough to get through that first week or so until you get to the point. And then after that, your food actually starts to taste better without sugars, and so you won't actually crave it anymore. And then lastly, there's a mix of other items here that you may have in your pantry, or you may just make. Most of them are sauces in some way, shape, or form. If you are looking for sauces for foods, especially meats, you're going to want to make them for yourself. A lot of the store-bought will have other things in them, which will cause you issue. The more items that you have that are going to be on this list, the longer it's going to take for you to get to a point where you can start to introduce things. So again, it is tough, but you're going to want to limit as much as you can and go with the foods that work for you. A little bit lower here, just a couple other examples of things, types of foods that you're going to want to avoid and why. And from a high histamine perspective, histamine is a trigger. It will make you feel awful. And so a couple of other pieces. So that is the food guide for you. I know it's pretty overwhelming. Really, at the end of the day, is do your best with it. Be kind to yourself. If you've got other people that you can work with for an accountability partner, or even help in making some of these things, it will make your life easier. You will spend a lot of time making food, making fresh food. And if you can make it so it's fun and enjoyable, it's going to be easier to stick to. I've been through this for a long period of time, and I can tell you it does get slightly easier. It does get repetitive. So the ways that you can switch things up, add things in there that you enjoy, and even just changing week to week what you're eating. Just don't get stuck in on the same food all the time. And again, this isn't meant to be a long-term diet. You're going to want to talk to your healthcare provider or whoever you're working with from a medical perspective. I am not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. This is my experience, and I just want to make it easier on you. Again, take a look in the description for the link to the free download of this, and I hope it helps.